In this particular video, we're basically going to look at some of the problems that beginners tend to face when they are getting introduced to that, or when they're just starting that, or the machine learning by making use of Sklearn mostly in general. So first of all, this is actually what we looked at in the next video. So first of all, when it comes to machine learning scenario, first of all, we need to actually understand Python to an extent before you can actually dive into that of the machine learning, because some of the things that we're actually doing here from the starting to this particular point, I try my best to actually make it simple, but it doesn't really means that that's how simple it is at times. I just try my best from the ones that I know that are really important, and the ones that you should actually focus more. That's some of the things that actually brings out to actually explain some of the things. So some of the things that beginners actually feels when starting that on machine learning. First of all, when you are you don't structure your data well. Structuring your data well is that the data you want to actually work with. Let's say, like I said, you're a beginner. Maybe you have a small data that you want to actually work with. You don't follow those basic principles that, like when it comes to that of the structuring of data, like let's assume that you want to actually predict. Let's assume this Titanic data set. So first of all, you need to actually read your data and then structure them. When I mean structuring your data, make use of all these guys like this standard scaling, label encoding to actually pre-process. They are all part of the structuring of the data. And where the problem actually comes is that you don't actually understand your data, because before any data you want to actually make use in any machine learning model, you need to actually able to read the data really well. That's actually after you are done structuring your data, or before structuring your data, so before processing your data, you need to actually understand what your data is, the type of encoding that you have to actually do on it, and then you have to actually handle those of the missing values. So in a situation whereby you have multiple missing values, the best thing you have to do is actually, if it's much, you can try to handle them, and I've explained how to handle them by making use of this simple imputer, KNN imputer. You can also make use of pandas. Pandas also handle these guys really well. In case if they are not really much, maybe if you get rid of them does not actually won't affect much of your script that much, you can actually get rid of them. They're actually really getting rid of them is actually one of the best things to actually do, because those trying to handle them at times might lead to maybe overestimating or underestimating, because getting for it to be exactly the same thing that the actual data is supposed to be, most of the times, out of the 60 to 70% of the time, is not great. It won't be there. So it can introduce noise and some other stuff to your data, which some model can mislead the model to predicting the right one wrong. So when it comes to that of the scaling of your data, we have that of the standard scaling that we have here, the standard scale, the min mass, and this of the robust scaler. So these guys are actually really useful. So you need to actually able to, like I said, everything has to do with understanding your data and know whether if it requires scaling or not. For when it comes to that of the classification based models, most of the times you can actually scale your data, and then the scaling of data falls to that of the model that you are basically going to use for the prediction, because some models like that of the Ezee and that of support vector machine, we have not actually looked at it, but this support vector machine tend to make use of distances. So if your data are not being in the right order, like some values might be higher than other ones, support vector machine is going to, since it makes use of that of Euclidean distance, it's going to map it. Okay, this guy is the highest. Okay, maybe have something to relate to the target. So you can see that support vector machine, you need to actually scale your data down, so each distance won't affect it favor more features over the other. So if your data also have maybe some strain, because we know that models out there, most machine learning models actually, they understand that of the number. So you need to actually encode your data, and there are these three method are one of the method that actually we actually use to encode our data. The first was that of the label encoder, which is actually best for that of the target, which is actually this is actually label encoder. That is actually for the target, and then we have the ordinal encoder. Both of them work on similar way, because the output are basically the same thing, but those are these label encoder is that of the 1 dimension, and these ordinal encoder are more like 2 dimension, 2 dimension. That means you can almost label encode a whole lot of features or a whole lot of colon name all at once. One hot encoder is a different guy on its own. So you need to actually remember everything has to do with actually understanding your data. So that is the first thing. So after you are done understanding your data, and then still doing the pre-processing before you feed it to that of the model, you need to actually do what's actually called feature selection, because that's what we actually did here by making use of this of the select based variant threshold, this mutual class info. These three guys are really good, because what these three guys actually do is to first actually use the best features train your model, because without this if you don't actually use the best feature, your model can go into that of the overfitting because of the noise, and then sometimes I can actually make use of this train test. Then after that, you can actually pick the model you want to actually use. The picking the model actually determines the data you have. So this is actually one of the mistakes that beginners actually make, picking the wrong model for the wrong data. So let's assume you have a classification data. I can say classification targets with your data, and then you are using regression model to solve this kind of problem. It's going to perform really bad on those type of data, because those type of data is not what the regression model actually used for. And then after that, you need to actually be able to how to evaluate your models. If it's a linear, you make use of this of the mean square, absolute, and R2 score, the actual other ones. But if it is a classification based model, you make use of those of the accuracy score. You make use of, I think we actually covered that. Yeah, we make use of this of the accuracy score, the confusion matches, and the classification report. These three guys are really important, because they're really important for your machine learning program. So for your classification based program, and for these three guys, for how to score mean absolute error and this mean squared error, are really important for your linear models. So this you can also experiment really more in case if you are still beginner. Beginner don't tend to use real world data as of now. That's what I tried my best to use more like arbitrary data, so we can actually understand it more. So when you understand it really more, then you can dive into making use of real world data. That's what we make use of load iris data, and then we're making use of just short data here. Like let's go down, you can see that we're making just these data. We're actually using genders, age, salary. That's basically what we've been doing till the point that we're currently on. That I said let's actually make use of maybe bigger data, but the columns are not really much. But if you understand the basic data is really much, so it will be easier for you to dive into the real world data. So that's actually a bonus for that. So if you're also a beginner, make sure most of the time using this pipeline and column transformer, you need to actually understand it really much before you can actually dive into start making use of them. So, and this of the, if you're interested in saving your model, make sure to actually make use of these two guys, JobLib and this pickle. They are going to get your job really done quickly. So another thing is that when you are working with data, make sure data are actually safe, because all these guys are actually shaped in the right order. Your y shouldn't be maybe something like 100 colon, and your x is tending to be 200 and something colon. So it's not going to be a good idea. So these are everything we have covered are some of the things that the beginners tend to fail. That's why I started from my first to actually cover it up to this point. So in case this was actually anywhere useful, be sure to stick to the next one.